بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الأخلاء يومئذ بعضهم لبعض عدو إلا المتقين. يا عبادي لا خوف عليكم اليوم ولا أنتم تحزنون الذين آمنوا بآياتنا وكانوا مسلمين. ادخلوا الجنة ادخلوا الجنة ادخلوا الجنة أنتم وأزواجكم تحبرون. يطاف عليهم بصحاف من ذهب وأكواب وفيها ما تشتهيه الأنفس وتلذ الأعين. يطاف عليهم بصحاف من ذهب وأكواب. يطاف عليهم بصحاف من ذهب وأكواب وفيها ما تشتهيه الأنفس وتلذ وأنتم فيها خالدون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقل جاء الحق وزهق الباطل إن الباطل كان زهوقا صدق الله العلي العظيم. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We gather here on this blessed occasion, the entry into the blessed month of Sha'baan, where we celebrate the births of our beloved Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam, Abu Fadl al-Abbas and Imam Ali ibn al-Hussain as-Sajjad as-Zain al-Abidin. Peace and blessings be upon all of them. As per the verse I just recited earlier, these were the people who heralded truth and vanquished falsehood through their sacrifice, through their bravery, through their unwavering courage in the face of all odds, in the face of all oppression. They unveiled the true face of evil, whether it was upon the battlefield or whether it was in the courts, through their eloquence, through their wisdom, through their chivalry. Brothers and sisters, unfortunately our Quran reciter before was unable to make it, as you might have heard before the replay of the recitation of our dear Hajj Hadi Isfadani. Inshallah, we can pray for our dear brother Hajj Muhammad Asif, who was sick tonight and unable to make it. And I would also like to request salawat for our dear brother Hajj Talib Madhaji, the father of Mustafa al-Madhaji, who's also sick. Inshallah, for his well-being and for the well-being of all of our brothers and sisters. Aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, with that said, I would like to invite our dear and beloved Hajj Mustafa Elachi to join us to deliver the main lecture for tonight. Please welcome him with 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
محمد وعجل فرجهم يا الله. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين. أما بعد. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's a beautiful occasion because it is the beginning of Sha'baan. So we are in the first night of Sha'baan, the month where there is no istishhad, there's no azad, there's no huzn. It's all afrah. It's all celebration. It's one of those rare months where we don't have to recall the tragedies that befell the best human beings that ever walked this earth. And it's all celebration. And of them, the celebrations is, of course, the birth of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, and then Imam Zain al-Abidin Ali ibn al-Hussain alayhi salam. And a lot of the time we probably, although we're used to the birthdays and we're used to the azaa and we're used to our cultures or traditions, sometimes it's worthy to point at how little maybe we reflect on the importance of these events. If we say, for example, and even recently in these days, is the mab'ath of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, where Allah Azza wa Jal sends Jibreel alayhi salam and he tells him, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, and the Prophet says, not, I cannot read. This is a false narration ascribed to Rasulullah. He said to him, what should I read? And inshallah, this is a point that we should probably go back to the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Maybe one day we can do a lecture or a few lectures on the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, according to Ahlul Bayt alayhi wa salatu wasalam. The reason being is because when you realize the light that Allah Azza wa Jal has sent through Rasulullah, you start realizing when he says Husaynu minni wa ana min al-Husayn, you realize that the birth of Imam Hussain has a very, very great light about it too. And in fact, it is expanding on the nubuwwah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Tonight we're going to make a very light lecture. We're going to focus on a topic. Our dear brother was with us last night, and I'm repeating the same lecture, poor thing. So maybe there's something extra you can get. But essentially, there's an ayah in the Quran al-Kareem, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم أولو الألباب. Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions a quality about believers. And of course, when He mentions a quality about believers, mu'mineen, it means that this is a feature of your religion, that a religious person has certain qualities. So the person who's seeking to be religious and be faithful and have a hereafter that is fragrant and beautiful, and also a life that is fragrant and beautiful, the dua is Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. You can have goodness in your life and in your afterlife. That's the point of our religion. The idea is that we're not free of trouble, but everyone has trouble. The disbeliever has trouble, and the believer has trouble. As the Quran al-Kareem says, يَأْلَمُونَ كَمَا تَأْلَمُونَ وَتَرْجُونَ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَرْجُونَ. Allah says to the believers, the historical reference leaves me, but He says to mu'mineen, they suffer as you suffer. But you hope from Allah and wish from Allah what they don't hope and wish from Allah. As in, you have a hereafter. So you can achieve a contentment in this life, at the very least, and the pain will be short-lived, and it's followed with a goodness in your heart, inshallah. So what's this quality that you want to seek to become more aligned with that? And isn't that a great deal? Who doesn't want that? الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلِ. These believers, they seek to listen what's said, وَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَ. Then they follow the best of that speech. He's saying that they're attentive. يَسْتَمِعُونَ from istima' غَيْرَ السَّمَاء. Sama' is like hearing. When you're walking through the shopping center, we gave this example last night. You ask the Shaykh, I hear music passingly. Is it haram? The Shaykh will say, are you focusing on the music? No. He goes, it's not haram. Because that's as-sama'. Istima' is when you're seeking to listen. You're actively listening. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is referring to active listening. People who actively listen to what's said and they follow the best of it. He says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ هَدَاهُمُ اللَّهُ. That's a quality of a guided person. You want to know who's guided? People who listen. Of course, among the believing people. Furthermore, he says, وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Those are the people of deep reflection. So you find that a believing person seeks to listen, they follow the goodness of that speech, they say, you know what? I like that. I like that approach. I like that way of thinking. Does this align with Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam? It does align. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So they do ittiba', they follow that advice. And as a result, Allah Azza wa Jal says about you that you have been guided by Him. Not only have you been guided, you're a person of deep reflection. Ulul albab is a very high status. You look up the term ulul albab, people of reflection, people of the internal. Look up ulul albab in the Quran al-Kareem, and there's so many ayat about it. So we said istima' is to, alaykum assalam wa rahmah, istima' is to seek to hear something. Now, sometimes it's good to understand a topic or a feature by its opposite. What's the danger in not listening? When you look at your relationships with your family and your friends, how many arguments have you had or fights have you had? Don't give it away with your eyes, because sometimes when you say things, people they're not agreeingly, so I tend to know what's happening in your homes, right? But think about internally, how many times have you spoken to a person and they're on their phone talking to you, but they're scrolling? How many times have you been on your phone and your kids are talking to you? And you feel guilty afterwards because you're like, When I was growing up, I didn't have my mum scrolling on her phone and not listening to me, right? Now we have this generation of poor attention. What happens is we're having a lot of superficial type of relationships, superficial types. So if Allah Azza wa Jal does not accept that you think of other than Him in your salat. There's that famous story where there was a scholar who was praying in the mosque, and it was the night prayer, and he heard a noise in the background. So all of a sudden he started to beautify his voice, he started to pray with extra khushu' and khudu', and then he realized when his salah was done, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, there was actually a dog that walked into the mosque. So he said, all of my reward has gone to this dog. If you look at when we're focusing on something else in our salat, Allah Azza wa Jal, He devalues that salah. Sometimes He rejects that salah. So focus and attentiveness is very important for a believing person. And we live in an environment where the shaitan has orchestrated so much inattentiveness. People are inattentive about their own self. If you ever wonder why people consume so much, why are they consuming so much? Why they keep putting band-aids over their wounds, that void they're trying to fill? Why do they focus on the madahir, the outwardly things? This is different to, as our religion tells us, to look respectable, have a respectable life. You know, of the khairat of a believer, good shoes, a good horse, and a big house. Islam encourages go to Jum'ah in the best type of clothing, for example. You know, I need to follow this more often, right? But it encourages us to look. But we're talking about people that dunya, that those madahir are in their heart. They need it. They crave it. If they don't have it, they feel empty. A believing person, he has a nice car, she has a nice car. La samahallah, the car is wiped away. It's not such a big deal to them. They won't say, oh, my reputation, what will they think about me if I don't drive this brand new Camry, for example? The believer's not like that. The world is consumed, and they're inattentive, and they focus on all these exterior things, and the soul is forgotten. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says to us, have you seen a person who forgets themselves? They forget Allah and themselves. So Allah, afwan, the ayah, if I'm not mistaken, they forget Allah, so Allah makes them forget their own self. فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. So this is a very important topic that the believer must start with, the ability to actively listen. And of course, like in your employment, it's a problem. Your relationships, it's a problem. If you don't listen to yourself, it's a problem. You know, sometimes we don't listen to ourselves even to this extent. Inshallah, we're going to look at just what the ahadith say about al-istima', what some studies say about istima', and how we can benefit, because at the end of the day, if you're religious, if you're a faithful Muslim, or if you're just trying to become more religious, the best thing you can do is listen attentively, inshallah. Wa the salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ali Muhammad. Imamuna Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he says, عود أذنك حسن الاستماع ولا تصغي إلى ما لا يزيد في صلاحك استماعه. The Imam says that get your ear used to active listening. So he's indicating that it's something you have to train. Most people aren't born with this. Some children, mashallah, they're born with that inner genius, but otherwise we all have to learn how to listen. So it's something you have to do. You have to teach yourself. We're very good at teaching others to listen, but we're not very good at teaching ourselves to listen, subhanallah. And he says that, and do not listen to anything that doesn't benefit you. مَا لَا يَزِيدُ فِي صَلَاحَكَ اسْتَمَاعُ. Now, you know, the Shaykh is going to tell you, don't listen to music, it's haram. Okay, Shaykh, now we know it's haram. But at the moment, Allah is not punishing me. Those barakat you're saying that He took away from me, I can't tell whether it was from my sin or whether it was just luck. Yeah, these are things we can say, right? Look at it from a different sort of view. It is haram, and there is punishment for music and things of this nature. Na'am. But look at it from this view. Maybe Allah Azza wa Jal, He's so merciful, He'll forgive you anyway. We have to think about it like this. Okay, then how about that it's distancing you from your purpose? Isn't that important? What if that whatever you listen to is conditioning your heart and your soul? You know, the vast majority of music, We say it's haram. Certain styles of music, our fuqaha say are halal, and there's no issue. But that haram music, really think about what it's encouraging you to do. 99% of the time, it's encouraging shahwa, your desire, all the time. Have you ever heard of a rap song that encourages you to be good to your mother? Think about it. Give charity. I've never heard of a rap artist telling you to give charity.
I think maybe, what's his name? Low-Key, the Iraqi one, the Iraqi British guy.
Okay, well, there's ishkalat in his He
always raps about
Okay, yeah, by the way, that doesn't make it halal, you know, but we're talking about the music industry in general, you know. And, you know, you might have a few offshoots, maybe one, that's only one artist, you know, out of hundreds and hundreds, you know. Ultimately, and the style of music is important because that style of music also makes it haram. But we're talking about, generally speaking, just the music industry, what it's encouraging. You realize that your soul's better than that. And I always ask our brothers the same question. What they're talking about in the song, would you like people in your family to act like that? Especially the females in your life to act like that? And they'd say, absolutely not, without mentioning any details on the minbar. But so in other words, if you're not going to approve of it for yourself, don't approve of it for others. And don't let people spread this. You wouldn't let them spread it in your house or encourage the women folk of your house to engage in these behaviors. So you yourself don't engage in them. And why should you support them anyway? Don't support these industries, you see. So in other words, the Imam is telling you, your ear, let it listen to ear of the Islamic sort of I won't say understanding, but you might not hear on the minbar a lot. Although there are many great scholars that are focusing on this, and I can name them. But the idea of self-growth, personal wealth, training, you know, seeking more education in your industry to be the best you possibly can, this is all part of preparation for the Imam of our time. If you choose an industry to work in, the Imam wants you to be the best at it, or he wants you to be extremely good. You should have a thirst to always seek knowledge. The hadith says, seek knowledge from the cradle to your grave. They might ask the Shaykh, do I receive reward for non-Islamic knowledge? Of course, there is khair and istihbab in knowledge in general that is beneficial for you, beneficial for your family, beneficial for mu'mineen. The best people in our community are the faithful and the rich. They're the best in our community. Why? Because the faithful rich fund all these projects. It doesn't take away from the ones that Allah Azza wa Jalla didn't give them. But some people have tumuh. They have very high ambition in business, for example. They focus on self-development and personal growth. They're the ones that are funding. They're the ones that are bringing in the money. Doesn't take away, of course, you give what you can. There's more wajib on them. But we need people like that, with that ambition. And part of being that person is being a very active listener. There's a saying, you never listen your way out of a job. People that actively listen and they follow the best of that speech at work, they move up in the company. Or they say, I'm too good for this place. They start a business. They become independent. Active listening is extremely important. So there's the aspect of your relationship, but there's aspect of your career and personal development, where you listen to podcasts about health, about psychology, learn how humans work. It's very important. That conditions your soul outside of just the cheap pleasure sort of bites that we're listening to, and the short clips of like Andrew Tate saying something and winning the argument, and we're so addicted to argument. We're so addicted to debate when we're online. If you noticed, we want to see instant justice, like someone is driving very dangerously, then his car flips. We're addicted to this. You see, if you look at TikTok in America, TikTok in Australia, then TikTok in China, you will lose your mind. There are people that do these studies or comparisons. If you look at the TikTok in China, it's about scientific understanding, success, also discovery, education. Their algorithms keep feeding their kids success, hard work, education, and other things that are fun and humorous. But if you look at in the Western world, have you noticed what it's all about? Appetites, shahwa. That's all it is. It's stupidity, dumbness. We're conditioned to be dumb in these environments. So Imam Ali alayhi salam is telling you, don't even listen to it. Why? Don't you want to be the best? He's Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. He wants followers. He wants people to be with his wilayah. He was sent to mankind. as the expansion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So in other words, he wants you to be your best. He's telling you, don't look at anything that's going to take you away from your goal. The best in the dunya and the best in the akhirah. It doesn't befit a Shi'i to have a low maqam in the akhirah. They say that the believer, one hadith says, the believer is the best person in their region out of 100,000. This is one narration. So if you live among, it's easy in Australia, because among 100,000, say, people that are disbelievers, you're the one who's praying, mashallah, you're probably the best already, you know? But the idea is that he wants us, there is incentive to be the best that we are, that we're able to be. And you find that the active listening is an activity of Anbiya. Prophets do this. Prophets are very good listeners. You know, how often we heard that, or even Imams, of course, and even the Salihin. Our dear brother Sayyid Hussain mentioned last night that there was a time in Sham where Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam was insulted and sworn at, and may Allah curse you and your father Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And he started to swear at him. And it's a famous narration where Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, he waits for him and he absorbs him and he absorbs him and he actively listens to what the man is saying. And there is a technique, and actually we can identify the style of listening, because there are 4 styles of listening. We can identify the style of listening the Imam was doing when he listened to this man. And he said to him, if you were hungry, we will feed you. If you were naked, we'll clothe you. If you're thirsty, we will quench your thirst. And this man eventually ended up sitting with the Imam, and he says, I testify that you are the Hujjah of Allah on this earth. Allahumma salli Muhammad ali Muhammad. And all the Imam did was listen and offer kindness to the man. You see, as the Imam. So he saw him as a sign of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, there's only benefit from actively listening. As Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he says, Man ahsan al-istima' ta'ajjal al-intifa'. If you seek active listening, quickly you receive a benefit. Quickly. Ta'ajjal al-intifa'. The nafa' will come to you. There's never a time where you can actively listen and it works against you. Never. This is the interesting thing about it. Now, listening is half of the issue. We can listen attentively, but then there is something that we must take from it. We have to be scanning the idea. We're scanning the thoughts of the person. Now, inshallah, I'll go into the study that was done by the Harvard Business School and some of the articles that they reference. But inshallah, before we do that, I want to point to, in Surah Al-Mulk, Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions an ayah where He gives us the hadith, the narrations of people in Jahannam. So future hadith of people in a different realm of existence. So they're in Jahannam and it's the future, it hasn't happened yet. So the Malaika are questioning these people. How did you get here? We know Allah. Do you understand who this Creator is? You know how merciful this Creator is? I'm paraphrasing. We know Allah intimately. We know how He is. How did you get here, ya insan? The angels don't understand how insan put himself in Jahannam. Their answer is لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. If we just listened, لو كنا نسمع, and then used our intellect, أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير, we wouldn't be of the people of hellfire. فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير. So they acknowledged their sin and they're taken into hell. They're taken. But it shows you that even the angels are perplexed. Why don't you just listen? What's wrong with that? Why do we have this pride and arrogance that we think we're going to forge our own way through this world? When we never ever, we didn't bring ourselves to this world, we don't know when we're leaving, but for some reason during this gap where we're living, you know, when we're younger, especially when you're a teenager and you're in your 20s, you want to forge your way and not take the advice of your elders, for example. Because we feel like if we follow them, we're not forging our own way, we're not being independent. But the idea is that nothing you know has ever come to you except that you listened to it and heard it beforehand. No one can claim that they're independent. We've all had to benefit from someone. Now, the humble people, الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلِ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَ. Dad, you've got this advice. Okay, I understand you give me this advice, maybe a bit too passionately. Maybe our parents are a bit too passionate. Why, Dad? Why, Mum? put a question mark around what they're saying. Actively listen to, I really think, son, daughter, you should be doing this career. I raised you, you have such great talents here. No, but I want to do this, that. It pays more and I'm more excited about it and it's cooler. And slow down the situation. Dad, make a case for me. I want to take your advice. I want to listen to you, but make a case. Convince me. No arguments. I don't want to have a fight. Actively listening gets you to that level where you can communicate. You know, if you can communicate with your parents in an easy way, you'll be so successful in your career. So successful. Because if you navigate because parents are sensitive, especially when they get older. I'm telling you this now. I'm very sensitive. My daughter, she's 4 years old and she's upset me. Like I wanted to cry upset. Because I feel like, oh my God, how did I feel rejected by her. She's only 4. We're sensitive, man. Your parent, and oh my, mashallah, after 10, 12, 18 years of raising you, they are flawed when you give them the wrong word. They hate hearing something bad from you. It really hurts, right? But if you develop how to walk around the sensitivity of your parent, and by the way, if you're laughing, you're going to be a sensitive parent too. All of us are stuffed, okay? If you can navigate that, you will learn how to talk to anyone. CEO or the cleaner, you'll know how to talk to anyone. But actively listening is the important thing. So inshallah, there are 3 levels of active listening and there are 4 styles of listening. So there are 3 ways we listen and 4 styles of listening, right? We'll get into that with the salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Active listening is not just saying, oh yeah, you nod, and then the person says, can you repeat back what I said? And you tell them, no, I can't. That's not active listening. Active listening is when it's non-competitive. You're not trying to get your word in. You know, when we're talking, we're just trying to put our words in. That's not active listening. It's non-competitive in its nature. The other criteria, it's 2-way. When you have 2 active listeners, it's a wonderful conversation. People know when to pause. They know when to listen. They know when to ask questions. They both feel interested in each other. You know, they're not trying to push or impose their thoughts or their ideas. We listen through 3 ways. One is behavioral. So behavioral is showing interest. Like I said before, behaviors, physical things. We nod, I understand, yep. So there's like verbal, saying, yeah, I get you, and saying, sometimes you're nodding. So there are verbal and there's also non-verbal. There's emotional listening, which means that you stay calm and it's also compassionate and you don't show that you're bored or you're annoyed. The worst thing you can do, even if you're bored or annoyed, is to show it to a person. Listen, it's the worst thing. You know the worst people to show this to? People that are lecturing inside of a Hussainiyah. I'm telling you, it's the worst feeling when you're speaking to a crowd and you've prepared a lecture and inshallah, I'm practicing it myself, for example. And then you speak and the person doesn't listen. The first thing I ascribe guilt to myself. I must have been a boring speaker, you know? And then we go home with all this guilt and ask my wife to just, babe, can you listen to it for me? I feel terrible. She's like, why do you doubt yourself? And then you get into this funny talk and it's just to charge you up again. I'm telling you, it throws people into shame spirals. When you're talking to a person, don't show that you're bored, even if they're boring. Because you know what happens? That person, when they see that you're receiving them, they get excited. You build their energy, actually. I always tell my friends, like, they might ask, what's your favorite culture crowd? I say Pakistanis. I'm not trying to pander to any Pakistanis here. I go, why? I go, because every time I say something great, they throw it in Nare Haydari and all this stuff and they jump out of their seats and they're great. I want to speak to these guys, you know? You know, but when it comes to, but they say,